Hey there, and welcome to some more Factorio 2.0 and Space Age tips and tricks and features that you may not know about. I'm Exterminator, and thank you for joining me today. And we're going to be going over some stuff here that may not be initially obvious when you start playing 2.0 free update or even the Space Age expansion. And these are incredibly helpful things that I've utilized across the board. So let's just go ahead and get right into it. First one here is going to be temporarily setting one-time requests within things like machines, turrets, and locomotives by ghost placing the item you want to request in the ingredient slot. So for example, we have this machine here making gears. If you press Q for your pipette by default, over this, it gets a ghost. And then if you place this, if you click in here, it's going to place a one-time request for basically the max that the slot can hold. And you can see my robots just brought it here. My construction robots brought it over to here. This is not a permanent request. As you can see, they're not, currently supplying it anymore, but it is a really nice feature. What I actually like this with the most is turrets and train fuel, because turrets, you can now actually have robots come and supply these, at least initially, by doing the same thing. If you can't queue over this because there's multiple different types of ammo, but if you, for example, come in here and you queue pick over the ammo that you want, and then come in here and click in there, it's going to do the same thing, and you can see the robots are now bringing it over, and that just sets that one-time request. And then again, very much like that is if we come in here and queue pick solid fuel, for example, and go into the fuel slot of a train, it's going to do the same thing. And this is just incredibly helpful. I have used it the most with turrets, whether it's emergency defending or setting up at an outpost or something, and I just need ammo there without actually setting up, requester and inserters and stuff, which previously you would have to do. You can at least now just do this initially that way, which is really helpful. The next thing is shift clicking from an assembler to an inserter to set filters. And this is one I actually kind of missed multiple times in the notes until someone pointed it out to me, and now I'm using it a lot. So very simply, if you shift right click in assembling machine and then shift left click in inserter, that is, well, it doesn't have to be near it, but obviously it would make sense if it was, and shift left click, it pastes in the filters for the ingredients. Now, the only thing that seems to be lacking is the ability to paste in the filter for the actual completed item, but that is very much, I think, of an edge case where you would actually need that to be happening. And there is a mod that does do both that I actually just recently spotlighted. You can check that out if you'd like. But this is incredibly helpful, so you don't have to be setting these, especially if you have a recipe or a belt or something with multiple items on it and you want to just filter it. You can do that, although it does not work from a belt. It does work from an assembler or really anything that has ingredients that you can filter for with an inserter. The next up is rearranging items in the research queue. And this one may be slightly more obvious because there are buttons with it, but again, you may not notice because it only shows them when you mouse over it. So let's say, for example, I need some ammo upgrades ASAP because I'm going to fight or travel in space or something, and I don't want to cancel these and then requeue them at the end. All I have to do is go here and click these arrows, and boom, all of a sudden it has rearranged this, and now the research I want is at the beginning of the queue here, and you can just keep doing this. You can move them either direction, rearrange, and that way you're not having to cancel and requeue them like you previously had to do in 1.1. And this is an incredibly useful feature that I use constantly. Speaking of researches, and I'm going to do a whole video or a short on this, but very briefly, there are now trigger researches for some things instead of normally researching them. So one is like oil processing. This is something where you actually unlock this automatically by completing an action in the game world rather than actually inserting research packs. So with all these, of course, they require research, but for something like oil processing, you basically have to mine oil, and then this will just automatically unlock. And I think this can be confusing for a lot of people because they just don't know this is a thing because, it's brand new, it's not really highly mentioned, and they will just be getting these researches without actually doing them. But this is why, because of these trigger researches. Another one is like uranium processing. You unlock that by mining uranium. There's many others, but I will do those in a separate video. But just something to keep in mind there. If that was maybe throwing you for a loop, that's why that's happening. And then the next one, and this may actually be my favorite from all these. I don't use it as much because it is kind of niche, I would say, for like oil specifically and a few other things. But it is entity flipping, but more than just normal flipping. So previously you could obviously just normally flip these like this, which is fine. But now you can actually flip inputs. So you hit V for vertical flip to just do this like you used to be able to do. But now if you hit H for horizontal flipping, you can actually flip the input. So if I hit H here, you can see that it flipped the inputs and the outputs. But the important thing here is the inputs, because now my water aligns and my oil aligns. And then I just do the same thing here. And you can actually now create builds like this, whereas previously you couldn't really without having to space them out a lot more and do some crazy piping because, you know, the inputs were misaligned. But now you can just directly pipe. You would actually need another space here because you need 2 pipes. But again, you can see this lines up here, and then you can just pipe directly in here, and it is so much easier, so much cleaner. Of course, you can do this for chemical plants too, which I've done over here, which can make for really easy cracking builds as well, which is absolutely fantastic. I love this so much. Okay, so next up is automatic mode for train blueprint building. So previously, when you blueprinted a train down, even if it had fuel in the fuel slots and a destination in it, when the bots would build it and place the fuel in, you would still have to manually go into the train and actually tell it to go to the station. But now, as long as it gets the fuel from the robots and is built, obviously, then it will actually go there automatically. So if I put some trains in here just so we make sure that works and place this blueprint down, once the bots build this and the fuel request is fulfilled, this will automatically go to its destination station here, which is so fantastic. You do need to be a little careful, of course, not standing on the track in front of it anymore, but this is just really useful because you can just quickly blueprint down trains in a train yard or something, and they will just take off on their own once they get their fuel, and you will be good to go. The next one is map searching, and this is incredible. Basically, you go into the map, which is now called remote view, I suppose, and you click on the search button, and you can search for things basically anywhere you want. So let's say, for example, I search for gears. You can see I start typing G, and it's going to bring up anything that basically has the letter G in it, so you need to be more specific. But you can see already it's starting to highlight these things. And if I continue this for gear, you can see now it's showing me every place that there are gears in my factory. And this is where gears are made. And then I believe for some things we'll actually show you where they are stored as well. But you can see like this is making gears. These are all making gears, of course. And if we look for something else, so let's say inserters, because we know we have inserters in a box here, we can test and see if it works in a box. And it seems to not work in boxes yet, but I'm sure there will be a mod that does that. But it does show you still everywhere inserters are made. So this is really helpful, like, you know, if you're joining someone else's factory or you've built some crazy factory and you don't remember where stuff is, you can just search for stuff in here and it will show you everywhere that those things are made in your factory. And this is just incredible. And then you can like click on them to actually bring you directly to it. And you can also pin them as well on here, which is really, really great, because then you can just save it and you can see it's up here and it will always keep that pinned, and then you can just remove it like so. And then lastly, and this one is maybe a bit more specific to some people than others, but it is still quite nice, is smart number formatting for text fields. So text fields, this is probably really useful on like combinators, but inserters would work too. So if you go in here, instead of typing out, say, 10,000, you can just do 10K, and it will recognize this as 10,000. And this is really, really great. Now, we can see how far this will go if it will do things, say, like 12.5K, if it's going to recognize this. And you can see it says 12K, even though, so it is set here, though. It just, like, rounds. It doesn't show the 0.5 here, but you can see when you actually open it that it is showing the correct amount. So, you know, it saves like a little time, but if you're setting a bunch of stuff, if you go in and set amounts in you know, text fields a lot, this is incredibly helpful. It can also support other mathematical expressions, which I have not really messed with, but you know, you can actually do things like subtracting and multiplying and stuff to get a result, and then it will provide you that result, which I think is pretty awesome. And we can just go ahead and give that a quick try here. I've not used this, so this may fail. If I just say like 5K minus 2K and do this, you can see it is 3K, and boom. Simple like that. You can do more complicated stuff than this, obviously. Obviously, I could have just put it in 3K, but there are definitely use cases for this, particularly in combinator setups, I believe. So that is going to do it. 8 tips, tricks, and features that, maybe hopefully some of these you didn't already know about and you can find them useful. And, if you have more suggestions for some that you have found that I should do videos on, I definitely have more lists like this for future videos, but I'm always open to suggestions, and I'm sure some of you have found stuff that I've even missed as well. Leave them down in the comments, and if you did find this helpful and didn't know a couple of these, leave that down there as well, and drop a like on the video. It's much appreciated, and if you are not already subscribed, feel free to keep up with all future content. But until next time, I look forward to seeing you all, and do take care.